So let's start in DFS. Now, if some of our viewers haven't joined many MMA DFS contests, can you give us like an overview of strategy, how you want to build a lineup for some beginners, perhaps?
Yeah, sure. So basically, you want high volume fighters. You want to look at striking volume, takedowns, and control time. Like these are stats that really score on DraftKings. So what I would do is I would go to UFC.com, look up the stat page. And you're going to pull up the stat page. You're going to look up significant strikes per minute, takedowns per 15 minutes. These are time adjusted stats. And fighters who blend grappling and striking together are going to be the best fantasy scorers.
With that in mind, like who are some of the fights or fighters to target in DFS if you have any others?
Yeah, so Covington is 9,400, so he's going to be expensive. If you want a value play, Rafael Dos Anjos is 7,300 on the slate. He had a late opponent switch. Like RDA, that's his nickname. He was supposed to face Rafael Fiziev, and he opened as about a plus 200 underdog for the Fiziev fight on DraftKings Sportsbook. But Fiziev got COVID and had to pull out this week. I think it was Monday. So now RDA is facing Renato Moicano, and RDA went from a plus 200 underdog to about a minus 200 favorite for this fight. And his price tag stayed the same at 7,300. So that's huge value. So I would just plug RDA in at 7,300.
All right, let's move on over to the sports book now, Tim. Let's break down a few matches. So Alex Oliveira versus Kevin Holland. Holland, the favorite at minus 320. Total round line is set at 1.5. So that sounds like the odds makers think there's a decent chance that Holland gets a first round knockout. So how do you see this match going? What's a bet you like here?
So Kevin Holland is dropping down to 170 for this fight. He used to fight at middleweight, which is 185. Holland is going to be huge at this division. He's 6'3" and he has an 81-inch reach. And opponents at middleweight really struggled with Holland's length at times because he's so long. And just going down to 170 is going to make that play up even more. And Kevin Holland has unorthodox striking. He has pop. He's a BJJ black belt, so he's a competent grappler when the fight does hit the ground. His problem at 185 was he struggled really badly with takedown defense. Like he was undersized in terms of thickness. Like he was very tall and long, but he wasn't very thick. And he wasn't a very good wrestler. So he was just getting taken down constantly by like Derek Brunson and Marvin Vettori. So for this fight against Alex Oliveira, Oliveira is not nearly as good of a wrestler as Derek Brunson or Marvin Vettori. He's not nearly as big. So Kevin Holland is going to be in good position to keep this fight standing and really pick him apart from range. So if you look on DraftKings Sportsbook, Holland by finish is minus 110. That's a big drop from the money line, which is about minus 330. We just saw Randy Brown finish Oliveira. He dropped him. He was close to finishing with strikes, and then he finished him with a choke. So I would look at Holland by finish at minus 110.
All right, Edson Barboza, the slight underdog to Bryce Mitchell. Line is one of the closer ones of the night. So is there like a winning method bet you might be looking at to get a little more value?
Yeah, there is. So this fight is basically a classic striker versus grappler matchup. Like Edson Barboza is a great striker. And if the fight stays standing, Barboza's probably going to win. But if Mitchell keeps getting takedowns, then Mitchell's probably going to win. Mitchell is a grappler. He's got a pretty slow striking pace. He's only landing about 2 significant strikes per minute. So that's pretty low striking output, but he generates a lot of control time. It's over 10 minutes in each of his last 2 fights. And 4 of his 5 UFC wins are by decision. So Mitchell by decision is plus 225. I think I would go with that because that's pretty good plus money.
All right, now let's dive into the main event. Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal. Odds are this one's going the distance. Over 4.5 rounds is minus 160. So are you willing to lay the juice on this one because there's no doubt it's going into the 5th round?
Well, I wouldn't say there's no doubt because it's MMA and anything can happen, but this fight looks like it's going to go to distance because both these guys are tough to finish. I think there's like a combined 3 times that they've been finished in all of their UFC fights, and both these guys have a lot of UFC fights. So Covington's style makes him prone to going the distance because he lacks one-punch knockout power. And he's very control-heavy. And Masvidal is so tough and he's so well-rounded. I would definitely take the over on this fight.
All right, so we're sort of building out your script here. Just look into your crystal ball. Who's winning and what's the winning method?
Okay, so I'm going to plug DraftKings Playbook real fast. We wrote this fight up pretty in depth if you go to Playbook on DK Nation. But I think this fight's going to look like Masvidal's first fight against Kamaru Usman, where in that fight, Usman went for a ton of takedowns. He had like 17 out of 25 minutes he registered control time, which is massive. And I think he went for like 15 takedowns in that fight. So I think Covington is going to blend his distance strikes to set up his wrestling and win a decision in a very close distance fight with a lot of clinching. Because I don't think Covington's going to stay at range with Masvidal, because that's the fight that Masvidal wants. And it's going to make it much more competitive. Like Covington will stay at range to set up his takedowns. And I think once he can get inside, I think he's just going to grind out a decision win. So I would go with Covington.
All right. Love that. And there are a ton of ways to bet that outcome. We got fight parlays, fight props, round props, like everything. So what are some of the bets that you like?
So we mentioned a few bets earlier, but Covington by decision is minus 115 on DraftKings Sportsbook, where his money line is pretty heavy. It's about minus 320. So if you think Covington's going to win this fight and you're thinking about, paying minus 320, Covington's probably going to win by decision, because I don't think he's going to finish Masvidal. I don't think he's going to submit him. I don't think he's going to knock him out, because Masvidal is really tough and Covington doesn't really have big knockout power. So if you think Covington's going to win, I would just pick him by decision and you'll get it at minus 115 instead of minus 320. And the main event to go the distance is minus 150. That's another one that I like too, because I do think this fight is going to go to decision.